Neat Nation, you're here tonight, today, at this time, whenever you're watching this. It's evening for me as I record it. I'll release it in the morning though, but Lord knows when you're going to watch it. But you're here, likely because you saw my other video where I was talking about the 8-ish craft whiskeys / distilleries you should be looking at for, maybe to buy. And then I said I was going to taste some of these to pick my favorite craft whiskey that I've had in 2021, which is basically my entire career of tasting craft whiskey. I had some really good ones this year. I had a lot of bad ones, for sure. I had a lot of good ones. So, just to recap what it is we're going to taste here, and what I've tasted already, because I'm going to go ahead and cut, I think, 2 of these out that I went ahead and tasted, even though they're really, really good. So, in the previous video, I talked about the Still Austin Cask Strength 2-year. I am going to taste that in this lineup. This double oaked rye pick that we did from Starlight was fantastic. And then I'm also going to throw in this single barrel bourbon pick from Starlight, which I really, really liked pretty early on in my tasting this year. What I'm going to cut from the lineup, but what is worth perusing / pursuing, at least tasting and trying for yourself, is Chattanooga Whiskey out of Chattanooga. I've got some Middlewest picks. I'm going to taste all of them because they're really, really fantastic. I'll probably narrow these down to 1 to carry forward into the finals. This is going to be a long video, by the way. I'm going to eliminate the Limousine 6 Year Rye. I love this, but it's a mood whiskey for me. It's very citrusy, minty, juniper, clove, Christmas in a bottle. Really, really solid rye, and I think you should buy it, particularly if you can get the 6-year cask strength version or a store pick, which, I mean, we may have a store pick of this coming out in December, January, February. We do have an 8-year MGP bourbon from Dancing Goat Distillery that'll likely be out this fall. You can get access to that. Entryproof, or patreon.com/entryproof podcast. Love Dancing Goat though. ASW out of Georgia. They had this really killer single barrel that William Wiley sent me, and it's fantastic. Very, very good. It's a wheated bourbon that's been finished with charred staves. Don't know what that means. I have no idea what the process was like. I have no idea where the base whiskey was sourced from. ASW didn't make this whiskey. They sourced it, and then they finished it, and given their refinishing, I'm counting it. I'm counting it as craft, and it was so good that I want to taste it up against these other whiskeys. I've got a single barrel from Peerless in Louisville. 3 years old, so again, very crafty. And then this one's probably the most unique, and this is an 8-year craft whiskey from Boone County. Boone County is a very small operation in Boone County, Kentucky, just south of Cincinnati region. This is a wheated bourbon that I tried at the distillery that I really, really loved. I'm going to pop it, in just a second. So we're going to taste these suckers. So I got to make sure I've got enough. I'm going to have to do some dishes. You know what? Let's do this. Let's start with this Middlewest taste off here. So what I'm going to do is start by tasting the Middlewest picks as I dump whiskey back in the bottle, which I have no shame in doing. Last thing I want to do is dump out good whiskey. And the alcohol is probably going to kill any bacteria. So I've been very impressed with Middlewest Spirits out of Columbus, Ohio. They're doing some cool stuff, and at even young ages, their whiskey is conveying wonderful flavor vibes. I have cask strength rye, single barrel, wheat whiskey, single barrel, and then 4-grain bourbon. You guessed it, a single barrel. All at cask strength. Am I doing this blind? No, but that's okay. I'm going to be as unbiased as I can be. Anyway, and if I was just doing it blind, I would try to pick out what it was instead of just focusing on the quality of the whiskey, which is what I'm doing now. Here we go. Start with this Pumpernickel Rye. Get a little rubber, which I don't remember. It's really oaky. I get some molasses, some maple syrup, some nice rye spice. Not overly herbaceous. A little drying on the finish. It's dark. It kind of tastes dark. It says it's a dark pumpernickel straight rye whiskey. You kind of get I mean, the darkness doesn't really come from the dark pumpernickel. It comes from the oak. And this particular single barrel was hitting when it comes to the oak. I do get a little like fingernail polish finish, so it's not immaculate, but it's really, really solid. I mean, it's good. I thought about buying a bottle of this, and I elected not to. Not because I didn't like the whiskey, but because money. So let's get to this wheat whiskey. This is really good. This is one of those ones I tasted and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, what is this? Like, is this Weller? Is this a Weller product? Because it tastes well beyond its 3+ years. I mean, the fact that we're not even at 4 years yet. It's sweet. It's caramely. It's very straightforward. Like, not terribly complex. Kind of reminds me of Weller 107. Which I'm not going to taste it next to right now, but that would be an interesting taste off, maybe on Instagram at some point. You should follow me at Drew P. Whiskey on Instagram. Really good. The rye is not holding up as well as I remember it. The wheat whiskey 100% is doing that. Let's hit this 4-grain bourbon. We actually picked one of these suckers. It has not hit yet, though, so again, our Patreon followers will get access to this, I hope, soon. Just bottling hold up, apparently, at Middlewest. This one's not conveying the sweetness. This particular single barrel is not conveying the sweetness and the oaky depth that is conveyed in the wheat. It does remind me why we picked one of these that was a little bit deeper, as far as I recall, than this one, because it does have some reminiscence to like Buffalo Trace type products. Grapey notes for sure. Honey and grape shows up pretty pronounced, but this one is drinking a little bit hot. So all of these are very, very good whiskeys, but I'm actually going to proceed with this wheat whiskey, single barrel 0157, as the one that's going to make it into the finals, stacked up against some of these other whiskeys. So, putting these away again. These are all good samples. Again, I don't want to let them go to waste, and I don't want to get hammered, so I'm not going to throw these back. I mentioned this was going to be a long video. You didn't realize it was just going to be because I was talking a lot while I was pouring and repouring and unpouring whiskeys. Alright. We're going to do one more elimination round. That is, we're going to taste the Double Oak Rye we picked from Starlight against a single barrel bourbon we didn't pick from Starlight. So the bourbon, not refinished, 4.5 years old, but I recall it being quite good. So we're going to pick one of these from Starlight to represent that delightful craft distillery in the finals. When I popped the bottle, so when you're picking a barrel at a distillery and you taste it straight from the barrel, your judgment's a little tainted, particularly me, whereas this was my first barrel pick I've ever done at Starlight. But when I tasted this out of the bottle, I was elated. I was elated because it was even better than I remembered it. I have some fantastic ryes on the shelf. Michter's 10. I have a 10-year redemption rye up there. I've got this Willet. I need to do a Drew P's Best Ryes lineup, but I think this could compete. I think this could hold up with some of those. That said, let's taste this bourbon, because it's been a long time since I tasted it, and try and be as impartial as possible. Here we go. Really solid nose on it. It's light, but it's rich and kind of got dried and fresh fruits. Not a lot of raw grains, which is unique for a 4-year-old craft bourbon. This is delicious. The finish on it is a little medicinal, but it's got some flavors that remind me of young MGP, like similar to the Smoke Wagon MGP, like the small batch or the straight bourbon, not the uncut, unfiltered, but it tastes like young MGP. It's good. It's caramely. It's spicy, but it's got some like aspirin-y kind of drying qualities behind it that leave a little bit to be desired. And as I look at the other products here, some bangers. I just don't know that it's going to hold up. Whereas this rye, I mean, it conveys sweetness, fruit, mint, clove. So we got spice, fruit, all kinds of complexity, viscosity. It's just pure deliciousness, 100%. Hundo P on the delicious on the Starlight Rye. So we're going to cut the Starlight Bourbon. Unfortunately, it's good. I'm not saying it's not good, but I don't know that it's going to hold up. Okay, now we have the tough challenge of working through these 6 products. We've got the Boone County, we've got the Peerless, we've got the ASW, we've got the Middlewest Wheat Whiskey, we've got Starlight Double Oak Rye, and we've got Still Austin. What I'm going to do is start with this Boone County, this 8-year wheated bourbon. Then go to the ASW, another wheated bourbon, finish with charred oak staves. Then we'll do the wheat whiskey from Middlewest. Then we'll hit the rye bourbon from Still Austin, the 2 ryes, and try and pick a winner. Maybe we'll go from semifinals to finals. We're definitely in the semifinals right now, though. Here we go. Let's start with this Boone County, which I have already poured somehow magically while you weren't watching. The bottle pop was great, though. The sounded fantastic. The nose is delightful. A really, really rich nose. Really sweet brown sugar, almost to the point of buttercream. Not quite there. Holy ball squad. Whew. This happens to the best of us. But sometimes, when you swallow the whiskey raw, it hits that soft palate. It's exposed membranes. Oh, me mamo. That was delightful. I mean, the front was great. Then I nuked my throat. So you gotta be careful with how you swallow whiskey. I'm sure you know this. Anyway, let's get back to it. Really nice caramel and brown sugar. And that's almost all there is. It's a little bit thinner than I remember on the front. It is creamy, but it's thinner. We're talking 2% milk instead of whole. Like, that's the difference. Nice creamy mouthfeel, but just a touch thinner than I remember, but big, big sweetness. Really solid start. Definitely not counting this one out. Next, let's go to this ASW. Another wheated product. More smoke on the nose here, like up front. Smoke and bubblegum. Smoke encouraging. Bubblegum could go either way. It's a lot of bubblegum. Big bubblegum up in here. And what I'm getting in the ASW is like this big oakiness that comes from, I feel like, the charred stave finishing that they did. But I also get an undercurrent of raw grains with some oak coming over the top. They certainly infused a lot of aged characteristics into this whiskey with the charred oak staves. That said, it's very, 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 very difficult to cover up certain notes of young distillate, which seem to be present in here because they're not boasting a high age statement. Not boasting an age statement whatsoever. So we're probably in the 4-year age range with the wheated bourbon that went in here. Then infused the oak, and it tastes real good, but it's very bubblegummy, and I get some raw grain. It just doesn't quite hold up to the Boone County. So not bad. In fact, it's very good. But I think that raw grain that I'm getting in the big bubblegum, it's just going to rule it out. I love it. It's very good. Big thanks to William Wiley. Stellar guy. Generous guy. I'm a fan of him. He seems to be a fan of the show, so it works out. We met online. But I got to cut this one, as much as I love it. Now let's hit this Middlewest. Not wheated bourbon, but a wheat whiskey. Certainly craft. But this one has blown me away every time I tried it. and it continues to blow me away. It's big. It's deep. It's a little bit hot. It's like 123.6 proof, so it is kind of hot. But it's only 3 years old, and I would swear to you that it's not 3 years old. I just talked about that ASW, how it kind of conveys some raw grain. I get Zilcho in the raw grain from this guy, this wheat whiskey, which is interesting because it seems like raw grain shows up most in youngish bourbons, young whiskeys with a heck of a lot of corn. I don't know how much corn is in here. It's predominantly wheat, maybe mostly wheat. And that wheat is lending itself to big sweetness, and this particular single barrel has absorbed a lot of age characteristics from the barrel in the 3 years it's been in there. So this is really good, and it's going to give that Boone a run for its money. So we're taking Middlewest to the finals on that wheat whiskey. And that Boone County as well, I think we're going to put that one in the finals too, tentatively. Now let's get into the Rye products. Specifically, we'll start with the Rye Bourbon in this 2 year Still Austin. And it tastes like a classic bourbon. I mentioned in the last video, it's like a 6 year Elijah Craig barrel proof. That's kind of what it reminds me of. Solid, like just solid out of the ears, super solid. If I want to nitpick, which I will, it's a little earthy, kind of a little dirty. Not as sweet as I might like, but with some really interesting spice notes, plenty of black pepper. It'll do for pretty much any occasion. Perfect whiskey to share with friends on a friend at night, whatever you might do with friends in an evening, maybe in the morning, I don't care. But it's a good whiskey to share because it's a good whiskey. Is it unbelievable? Well, let me just taste it next to one of these, and it might get ruled out pretty quick. Yeah, it just falls a little flat. It's not quite as sweet as the Boone or the Middlewest in good ways. Not quite as deep. I'm in that 2 year aging. Certainly I don't get a lot of raw grain, but I get this kind of bitterness. It feels like it's not as polished, kind of rough around the edges. I'm loving what I'm tasting from Still Austin, but I'm going to go ahead and give it the old axe. So now let's take these ryes. Maybe we'll pick one of them to go into the finals. The Starlight Double Oak and the Kentucky Peerless. Let's start with the Peerless. I know this Double Oak. I picked it. Tasted it many times. Thankfully, this is only my first bottle. I have a few extra left. Knowing the Starlight, this Peerless is very good. It drinks easy, 108.8 proof, and goes down smooth. That said, the flavors are kind of muted. Flavors on this one, big sweetness, big herbaceous qualities, big fruit qualities, and enough oak to balance it all out. This one is just thinner. Nice but thinner, like all the way around. I mean, more like Perry type fruit, this more raspberry. The citrus in here is very light. The sweetness is like simple syrup, where this one is like candied lemons, powdered sugar. So yeah, I mean, this is actually, I hadn't tasted this one since I originally tasted it, but it's actually a pretty easy cut to make. Which may seem a little biased for me to enter in my own barrel pick to the finals, but I mean, if anybody's had this, they know how good it is. This Double Oak Rye. And if you're like, well, now I know what Drew likes in rye. Yeah, I like this. I like a balance of oak, herb, and fruit. And mint. A little mint. Citrus. Citrus and raspberries together. Does it get better than that? I don't think so. It'd be hard. It'd be hard to get better than that. Okay. Here we go. I think I have enough of these left to pick a winner between the Boone County 8 year wheated, the Middlewest straight wheat whiskey 0157 single barrel, and the Double Oaked Rye single barrel from Starlight. Now, what you'll notice about all of these, and I mentioned this in my last video, these are all single barrels. With craft whiskey, it seems like they tend to shine sometimes in single barrels the best. So I don't tend to buy craft whiskey off the shelf. I'm very open to buying store picks, though, if I can taste them in advance, because some of those distillates sing really, really well in particular barrels. You just never know when a barrel's going to pop. So just because I've tasted something from a distillery, I don't want to rule it out, that distillery, even if I didn't like it, because I haven't liked the standard bourbon release from Starlight, but a lot of their barrel finishes or some of their single barrels are crushing. So I think every craft distillery should be doing store picks. I think they're doing their brand a disservice not to showcase some of what the quality that's resting in their rickhouses. But now it's time for me to pick a winner. I've been sitting here for like an hour recording. I had a technical issue where I lost like 15 minutes of content. That sucked, but here we go. Time to taste and pick the best craft whiskey that I've had this year. Let's start over here with this Boone County again. It's delightfully straightforward. Tastes like a really great cask strength wheated bourbon that's not crazy aged. I want more oak out of it. I remembered more oak. I'm not getting it right now. It is a fresh bottle pop. Take that for what you will take it for. It might mellow out with a little oxidation in that bottle. It's really good, but it doesn't have the depth that I remember this one having. This is so good. This 3-year-old wheat whiskey from Middlewest. The finish is the only thing that's like, I get something there that I can't even call out immediately, but it's like something pops up in the back of my tongue that's like, that's not amazeballs, but the front is amazeballs. It's fantastic. I could go either way. On a different night, I might go a different way. But what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to give it to Middlewest. It's a big upset. Middlewest knocks out the Boone County 8-year single barrel wheated bourbon, which is a great bourbon, don't get me wrong. As far as craft whiskeys go, as far as any whiskeys go, this Boone County, which I'll show you one more time, is fantastic. Really, really good. But now we're talking about the best craft whiskeys I've had out of over 100. So you'd hope they'd be pretty good. So we got the Middlewest up against the rye, the Double Oak Rye Starlight pick that I did. Again, bias, sure, but I love it, so suck it. Last taste, then a choice. Let's do this. It's so sweet, and it's so fruit forward, with a lot of mint. Like, the mint is there. If you don't like mint, this is not going to be for you. But to me, it's raspberries and spearmint with some candied citrus, suggestion of oak, like enough there to keep it balanced, but not overbearing. It's a fantastic rye. And there's nothing about this rye that I look at and I'm like, oh, but it's, no. It really tastes great to me. And the Middlewest wheated whiskey is winning until the finish. Like that finish, which is a little bit of like envelope. I think that's what it is. I get a touch of like when you lick an envelope. A little bit of adhesive that makes me like, I'm just like, so good. But there's this touch of envelope. This one thing, touch of a thing I don't like that makes it not what I think this Double Oak Rye is. Now, you might be, again, like, well, Drew, you're biased. You picked this. Maybe. I don't know. Like, sure, if you want to say that. If so, then look for Middlewest stuff, because their picks are amazing. Remember, I tasted 3 of them. I only picked 1 of them to go to the finals. Really good stuff, and we have a pick coming from Middlewest, their 4-grain bourbon. And then also that Boone County 8-year. So, those are my top 3. Between the rye, this guy, and that Boone County. So if you discredit bias, then Middlewest is the winner. But for me, if I'm picking my favorite whiskey of all that I've tried over the last year, it actually is this Double Oak Rye that we picked. First barrel pick I ever did. But it tastes fantastic. and I've tasted it a bunch, and I've tasted it up against a bunch of things. I love it. So, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed that. That was super long, but it's been a long journey. And it's been a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I've tasted a lot of whiskeys tonight, so I'm going to go eat some crackers or something. If you want more, go down to the show notes below where you can get more whiskey content from the Drew P. Whiskey channel. Also, tune in Thursday nights, 8 o'clock Central Time, live streams. We're just talking about the latest news in whiskey, what we've been shopping for, what we picked up, what we're drinking, what we're loving. It's a good time always. At least I think so. It's going to be it. Hope you all have a good night, good rest of your week. It's 2 videos in a week. You're welcome. Now stay healthy, stay safe, and keep it neat.